This is the Balanced Advisor Podcast with Dr. Travis Perry, helping financial advisors like you achieve balance in their lives.
Welcome to another episode of the Balanced Advisor Podcast. I'm Dr. Perry, your host. Today, I have with us Kristin Shea. Hey, Kristin. Kristin is an award-winning and highly sought-after consultant, speaker, and influencer on a mission to serve and change the independent financial advisor space. An industry that is saturated with ineffective solutions and marketing advice. Kristin has dedicated her career to delivering the art of digital marketing, media, and attraction to forward-thinking financial advisors. Using an honest voice and sense of humor, Kristin lays out the good, the bad, the ugly, and arm you with the information you need to see success online. Thanks for being here, Kristin. I appreciate your time to help us out to have better balance.
Yeah, thanks, Travis. I'm really excited to be here. I love all of your work. I love how you have basically dedicated your whole career to helping advisors live better lives, and you have done so in with such a servant's heart. It's amazing. I'm glad to be here. Balance is a very important topic, and I'm grateful to be a part of the conversation.
Absolutely. You're kind, and we've had some great conversations and pre-show and getting to know each other. We both serve this audience. We know a lot about advisors. We know the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I like that we're going to talk about some of this today and focus on balanced growth. Yes, balance, but also how are we growing? How are we using marketing effectively? And we're going to talk a lot about what you're involved in, what you're doing. But first, start us off with telling us, how did you even get into this space? How did you get into serving this industry?
That's a great question. And I feel like I know that my answer is not unique. I got into this industry by accident. To the people that come out of college or grow up as a kid saying, I want to be a financial advisor when I grow up, cheers to you, because you had a foresight about the amazing impact you can create in people's lives through an industry that isn't always represented in the best light. Way before I think I did. I was recruited out of I always studied in college, which I never finished, by the way, psychology, communications, philosophy, basically a wanderer of studies to help better understand people and scratch the itch for me as an artist, or somebody who saw myself as an artist. And was recruited out of a restaurant by two nice guys who tipped well and brought me into the corner of the world that wholesales annuities to independent advisors. Had a bit of an identity crisis. I dyed my hair black. I'm like, I'm part of the machine. I worked in financial services of all places. I'm an artist. I'm a rebel. I'm whatever. But very quickly realized that if there is a place to be a student and a servant of the people, it really and truly changed lives for generations to come. This is it. And as somebody who directly supports advisors, my view is what an amazing thing to be able to potentially help even more people through the advisors that they help. So I've been learning and growing inside of this industry, taking the same lens of understanding psychology and how people work and how people feel and what's important to them. And also looking around at where the world is, where technology is, and what advisors want, not just what people in general want, to help advisors build a better business and live a better life.
So good. What you mentioned there, like I have a background in sociology and social psychology, and then I did a master's in psychology. And so like, I know why you did that. And you were attracted to understand how people think, what they are worried about. And the communications world is very much focused on, a lot of marketing, PR, depending on the program you're in. And so I could see how that was sort of a gravitational pull for you. And now you're really helping advisors do this, do it well, do it authentically. You're a very authentic and real person. And that, I know a lot of advisors follow you. And if you haven't, you'll find her on LinkedIn. She does great things there. She's very, very involved there. So let's talk a little bit about this elephant in the room of balance. Most advisors struggle with balance. I find most people in the industry, probably almost any industry, but like you've said, I focused my efforts here in the financial industry. We struggle with balance. It is a real issue. So before we get into what your struggles are, let's talk to me about what you define as balance. As a newly married, business owner, striking out on your own, doing lots of great things in the world. How do you define balance?
Well, defining balance. I would define it in the way that one would define finding one's flow state, right? Like your flow state is a state of mind, a state of being between your body and your mind, where you are showing up as your best self at your highest level of productivity, your highest level of creativity in a completely effortless, powerful way. I think words related to being in a state of balance or being in a flow state would be freedom and peace, right? I think that definition of balance is attainable and something worth striving for, and something that's truly realistic. I think a lot of times when you think about the word balance, or especially work-life balance, it's such a big topic of conversation. In my perspective, I'm not really sure that work-life balance is a real thing, because everything that we do in business and life is just so intertwined. You can't separate the two. Even if, for some people, if they were to define balance as being something where they can stop working at a certain point so that they can spend time with their family, or they have the freedom to take a week off and go take a vacation. That's what balance is. I don't think there's a separation between the two, where balance is keeping these two things separate. It's understanding that they're completely integrated, and making sure that the way that those two worlds collide is a place that is in your flow state, is a place of peace, is a place of freedom. So, for example, if you have a bad day at work, you don't leave it at work. You come home and you take it home to your spouse. If you have a bad day at home, bad morning, things don't work out, kids go crazy. Easy thing for me to say because I don't have kids. I guess that's just how I would imagine a morning on the day where I hypothetically have kids, is that the mornings would get a little crazy. It's 100% going to affect your state at work. So, and how you show up at work. So, my take on balance, just to quickly summarize, it is not a separation of work and life, because I do not believe that work-life balance as a separation in two isolated things is something that really exists. But instead a place where you and everything that makes you, and where those two worlds collide inside of yourself, get you to a place where you can be in your flow state, live effortlessly, live with peace, and operate and at your highest potential, and show up as your best self.
Yeah, I love that you're talking about this, because there, when I wrote Achieving Balance, there's really three myths of balance, and the first one that we get into is just, do we even call it work-life balance? Like, I don't even really mention work-life balance in my book at all, because I think that sets it up completely wrong. Because it almost says like, hey, you're something at work, and then you're something different at home. Like, I'm the same guy. I just happen to be at work for a few hours a day, and I might not be at home. I may be traveling. I may be doing other things. I may be serving in my community. I may be at home for those hours, but it's this other part of me that says, no, there's basically 10 areas of your life. What are your priorities? Where do you spend your time? Be very proactive about where you spend your time. And I think that's where you're actually getting into this place of freedom, right? And that place of freedom comes with being disciplined to say, this is where I'm at right now. But you did mention this. There is plenty of studies of stress overflow from work to home. and from home back to work and how we cope or deal. I'm a fan of your spouse should be that person that helps you. No, that doesn't mean I come home and I tell my wife my laundry list of all the bad things that happened that day. But if I need someone to help talk me through or talk me off a cliff about something at work, like I'm going to go to her first and I'm going to work it out because she's going to help me. And I think that is something that is really important that you mentioned. That's a great way to manage stress. And as a couple, that's who you're for. Yeah, that's really what you're for, your friends, right? And your accountability partners. So thank you for bringing this up. This is really good. This is a really good discussion. So let's talk about, as you're scaling your business, you're marketing to advisors, you're growing your own business. What is it that might throw you out of balance based on your definition? That, as you're trying to scale and grow, as you're marketing and doing all these great things, what is it that throws you out of balance from time to time?
Well, if you don't mind, I'd love to go back to a couple of the things you just said. There's a quote that I recently read, which is that balance is not just something that happens, it's something that is created. So where you talk about using discipline and being intentional about how you achieve balance, whatever that means for you, because I think it is a really highly individualized thing. It is something that is created, and you are the only person who has the power to truly create that balance. If you're looking to external sources to create that balance for you, you will never achieve that. It has to come from within yourself. A quick example on the highly individualist aspect of this, right? Like what you said about having a spouse at home, being somebody who can be a safe space and an advocate and a source of strength for you when the times get tough. How your spouse is involved, it looks very different for different people. I'll tell you, earlier this year, I took a really hard stance. I think for the first time in my entire life, my entire career, chronic workaholic, that is a badge that we shouldn't wear with pride, but it's, and I try not to, but I'm also realistic. I think about how I am. I love to work. I love to work. For the first time in my life this past year, I took a stand for the sake of achieving balance, peace, freedom, health. It would be another good word to throw in there. I moved out to Kansas about 2 years ago to build a startup, which is no longer a startup. It is a company that is changing the industry. A pretty big team doing pretty amazing things, but there was no balance. I moved across the country. I moved to Kansas, right? Started off, my husband wasn't there with me. He was at the Pentagon at the time. He's working in the government. We're from Northern Virginia. That's where we've been. The idea was to go out there for a year. I was going to pay my dues, do the work for the season, come back at the end of the year so that we could harvest it, right? And at the same time, had a moving truck come out, moved a mattress out, had my dog, couple other things, nothing crazy. Half my clothes were still in Virginia. I was seeing my fiance at the time. We were planning a wedding once every 2 weeks, and it was every 3 weeks, and then it was every 4 weeks. And eventually my husband left his position in the government to come out and join me. And we found ourselves in a situation where we were working together in a state where we didn't know anybody and living in an apartment where you could literally see the office from our bedroom window, our living room window. That was terrible. That was really, 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 really bad. Joe and I, my husband's name now, we did get married. We did go through with it. We did get past it. We were getting sick every 2 to 3 weeks because of stress. I mean, part of that just comes from growing a business. And I can't say where Joe's stress came from, but speaking for myself, being able to walk, my life being a 2-block radius, being able to walk to and from the office. Oh, there's 10 inches of snow on the ground. No one can drive to the office. That's fine. I can just walk the 2 blocks. And then when I come home, I can look at the office, and then I can think about all the other stuff that I didn't do. Right. The big thing that I learned when I moved out there, I had this identity, and I share that identity, but it's a little different now, was that my identity was I love to work, and that's what I do. I wake up every morning, I work out, I eat healthy, I go to bed early so I can do it again the next day, including on Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays. I thought life was about work. And I went out there and I found out what it really meant for my life to be about work, right? In a very serious way. Another example, I had Thanksgiving at my partner's house, and which was very kind, but there was no family there. And the biggest thing I learned was that peace, freedom, health, balance meant, first of all, not isolating yourself from the people that you love, whether you're on the other side of the country or you're right down the street, and not taking that for granted. And as much as I love the company that we've built. I was the first employee building desks, right? Like working at tables in restaurants before we had an office. And the first table, if you leaned on it, it would fall over, that kind of thing. To be there from day one, that was something that I had a really hard time facing when I was facing the decision of, am I leaving, and to what extent can I continue to do this? And is this the best version of myself for the company? And I left Kansas, and that was a hard thing to do. We're building a company, we're establishing the culture. We want people to be on site, especially in the beginning. And this is something that I'm not willing to negotiate on. This, I need to go home. I need to have space. And it's the best thing that's ever happened. And part of that also meant my husband, leaving the company, no longer working together. And our relationship has never been better. And it feels really good. But I guess it kind of goes back to that quote of intentionality. You have to create it for yourself. It's not something anybody's going to do for you.
No, you're 100% right. Like, and you have, like, I know, because I've talked to you a bunch about this, but like you had significant struggles with, where you're living, starting over. I still see a picture of your mattress on the floor in your apartment. I know what you've dealt with, both moving there and moving back, with even having your stuff stolen right out of your apartment, with someone who's claimed to have moved your stuff. Like, you're dealing with exceptional stress. And what I've learned with my extensive study of stress is it really is about the intentionality. And even just getting on this morning with you and talking about this, like, you started off with the positive, you started off with where you wanted to be. You're very intentional about your attitude, which is likely why you're so resilient. And business owners, as financial advisors, we're creating our own businesses. Like, we know, like, resiliency factor is huge. If you don't have resiliency, you can't get up again. You will be out sooner than you think, right? So I love that about you, and I love that you bring this up. But I also there's two things I want to talk about that you got into there, and that is, working together as spouses. This is a legitimate concern. I know a lot of advisors either work with their spouse or in some capacity. And I'm big on having your spouse be a support, accountability partner, your equal, all of that. But then it's a whole different dimension, right? When you're working with them, because there is then very little separation. There's very little you can do. And then if you can see your office across the way, that also reminds me of everybody during the COVID, they're at home, working from home. All of a sudden they're at a kitchen table. Now they have kids because kids aren't in school. Like, there's all these issues going on, and, you don't have those boundaries. So in one aspect, we're talking about intentionality. The other aspects, like, it is true, like, having boundaries at home and work, and with your spouse is probably a good thing, right? As you've been mentioning, like, those are important. So you've kind of been talking about some struggles here. What do you see? You work with a lot of advisors, and you help them with their marketing and things. What do you see other advisors struggling with? with their balance? Because you know these advisors, you work with them, you probably hang out with them, you see them at conferences. A lot of them are not in a balance flow state. What do you think they struggle with as well?
So first, I think what advisors are, I think there are a couple things that contribute to the lack of balance. The first one I think everyone can relate to. There's a quote from Naval Ravikant. He is a business philosopher. He has an amazing podcast. He is a brilliant mind. He's someone I 10 out of 10 recommend looking up. He has a quote. I don't know it word for word, but basically what he's trying to communicate is the outcome is not the source of stress. It is the uncertainty in between, right? It's the uncertainty is a cause of stress. And the related quote, right, that goes with it comes from my dad. He's probably not the first person to say it, but life is all about expectations. I think advisors are first of all, optimists and dreamers and entrepreneurs and doers and people that believe that they can make anything happen and that everything is going to be great, because it takes a very, very special type of person to be a financial advisor, right? You're not the type of person who is not resilient, who does not have the ability to see what is possible beyond what currently exists right in front of you. I think that between irrational optimism, setting improper expectations of how things will turn out, coming from internal sources, or irrational optimism and expectations set from external parties and promises made by the people that support them, serve them, back office, marketing programs, etc. They're setting up expectations that are completely unrealistic, making people feel like the things that they'll do are easy. They are already balanced is the implied suggestion for a lot of the advice given to advisors. And I think that that's wrong. So step one is, I think in addressing that, is really just having being realistic about what you're taking on and what it will require, and knowing yourself well enough to say, is this something I can do? Is this something I need help with? Is this something I even really want to do? Is this something I should be doing? Why would I listen to this advice? And is this the best thing for me? I think that's step one. And then saying, okay, well, if I am going to move forward, then I'm going to do so with the understanding that it's not going to be all peaches, and it's not going to be easy, and I'm going to fail, and I may have to put in some extra hours, but that's part of this season of bringing this thing to life. Anyone who were to say, I mean, even just the path to creating balance, creating scale, if you will, creating systems, creating processes, building a team that helps you find balance, right? All of those things take work. So again, there is work to be done in order to create it. That would be the high level overview. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. So we've interviewed over 500 advisors for this book, Achieving Balance. And for the next book we're rolling out soon, Balanced Growth. It really is it's the second part of this trilogy. I've got another book coming later, but this part
Congrats.
is all about, this one is really all about how do we scale and keep the balance, right? And which is what you're talking about. And you deal with advisors every day to help them market and grow and scale. And basically my sales manager tells me all the time when he's doing this research, as we're talking about the book, that listen, most advisors, they want to be balanced, and they want to have this idea put out there that they have that balance, right? As you mentioned, they're already balanced. We call it fake balance. And that is, they put out this story like, fake balance. Like, oh, I've got it. Everything's fine. But in reality, they're multitasking with their life, or they're really productive workaholic. And so they don't see themselves as out of balance. They literally can't ever put anything down to go on an actual vacation, right? Because they don't want to leave it. We've talked about integration and being, proactive about those things. So it's a very real thing. So I actually have a quiz at maketimeinstitute.com. Advisors can take the quiz, and what we found is there's actually 4 types of advisors. There's a balance advisor. There's someone who we call a personal developer, who's kind of the fake balance. They kind of see themselves as being balanced, but not really. There's the productive workaholic, someone who really is great with productivity, but just works a lot. And then there's the stereotypical workaholic. Does that make sense? Like the 4 different kinds. And so advisors go like, well, I'm not the stereotypical workaholic. No, you might not be, but you're not likely in balance where you want to be yet. And so they struggle with this fake balance. And so I'm glad you bring it up, because that's our term for it. And I think it's funny, but at the same time, like, this is where a lot of advisors who I work with, they're in this middle area. They're in this fake balance spot where they want to be perceived as balanced. They want to live that lifestyle, but internally, psychologically, they're dealing with cognitive dissonance because they know they're not living that life. Right?
Sure. Absolutely. I think it's funny you talk about the 4 different types of advisors. At Triad Partners, we're a advisor coaching business development company, basically on an IMO, FMO chassis. We coach elite advisors bringing on at least $10 million a year in index annuity business comprehensive planning. We're only serving 30 offices, so it's really boutique. We've gone really deep. We're not serving everybody, right? And the challenges of elite advisors, right? Like at that level, the average office we work with is bringing on I'd say $60 million a year in new assets, right? They all have the exact same problems. They have I once heard an advisor say, I feel like every plaque for production I have on the wall represents a year of my life that I've wasted, right? The biggest challenges that they have is the things that we often hear are, I've fallen out of love with my business, right? I've lost the passion for my business. Another one is I'm afraid to grow any bigger. I can't take a vacation. So it's all the exact same things that you're saying. And no matter how much quote unquote production you're doing, there are 4 phases, kind of like how you have 4 types of advisors, right? There are 4 phases that we coach to called the 4 phases of scale, where even though the production might say that you are in a more advanced business stage, which I'll go deeper in a sec, they're really just still operating in phase 1, which is where all advisors start and 90% of advisors never get out of. The way phase 1 works is, we'll just play along to pretend like you're an advisor that just started off in the industry, right? Just started off, it's just you've gone independent, right? You're moving, shaking, you're grinding, you're starting to see some success, gain some confidence, things are working, you get a little bit busy, and then what happens? You need a little bit of help. So what do? You hire an assistant, you hire a helper, you hire someone to come in to help you, right? So you start getting some of those lower value tasks off of your plate, right? Things like confirming appointments or answering the phones, small things, right? And it frees up some time so that you continue grinding, pushing, creating success. And then, here we go again. It's time to hire somebody else. Before you know it, where advisors in phase 1 often find themselves is surrounded by what you would consider helpers, who are basically order takers and executing on tasks. The advisor still has the responsibility, first of all, of leading the firm, growing the firm, driving the business forward, right? All of the high value activities, they're meeting with clients, they're serving the clients, they're coming up with the marketing ideas, they're driving all of it forward. The helpers serve the role of basically saying, okay, what do you want me to do next? What am I doing next? And the advisor becomes the bottleneck. Even when they put something out to those helpers, it still comes back on them. So in order to move out of phase 1 and into phase 2, right, there are 2 things that need to happen. One, you have to begin to create specialization and definition of roles inside of your organization. so that not everybody is just doing all things at all times, specifically and especially the advisor who could be spending his time a million different ways, but really probably only has 3 or 4 things that they should be focusing all of their time on. So segmenting their business, the way that there are different schools of thoughts of how to segment your business. The way that we like to coach you, and the thing that tends to resonate the most with the advisor we work with would be 3 sections: marketing, sales, ops. As Dan Sullivan would say, before business, doing business, and then the after business, and the operations, including client service, experience, all of that. 1, segmentation. 2, hiring specialists, hiring experts, not order takers, right? Not people that can help take tasks off of your plate, but people that can take responsibilities off of your plate, people that can take some of the thinking off of your plate, that you can empower to own specific tasks and perhaps even teach you a thing or two. And along the way, working with those people as a foundational piece that really helps you get to stage 3, build processes that become rinse, wash, repeat, defined ways of doing things, so that when it comes time to hire, when it comes time to, hey, how do we do this one thing? You're not reinventing the wheel every day. It's already established. It's documented. It's crystal clear. When there's room for improvement on that process, there's a process for that as well. But it creates an environment where everybody can do their best work, stay in their lanes, focused on the things that they love, the things that they're best at, and nothing else. So many advisors are the bottlenecks inside of their own firm because they're either not hiring people, investing in talent that can take responsibilities and thinking off of their plate as opposed to just tasks, or they just are terrified of letting things go, where they say, it would take less time for me to do it myself than for me to take the time to train it. These common pitfalls.
Yeah, 100%. And those types are what I'm talking about. Those are productive workaholics, because what they'll do is they'll hire those helpers, right? It'll free up their time. And what do? Most of them will work more, and they'll work the same hours because it's a very difficult thing to say, I'm done. I posted just a little while ago, I went on a 20-day vacation with my family. I didn't do any work except for a couple of phone calls to my sales manager to see how things were running. And some basic, things that weren't working so well when we were gone. And I get it, like right. that happens, right? But when I came back, I scaled back. We hit all of our quarterly goals, and I could go out and celebrate. Or guess what I could do? I can give myself more time. I only work 25 hours a week as it is. So I scaled back another 4 hours. So I'm about 21 hours a week.
Wow.
Why? Because I want to be moving. I want to stand up paddleboard. I want to hike. I want to bike. That is my sense of balance. I want to be with my family. I want to go on vacations. I want to travel the world. And we do, not because I'm trying to, brag and say, oh, look how amazing my life is. People have it, way better. And, we can talk about privilege and everything else later. But right now, what I'm trying to say is that that's what I choose. That's my intention. And so if I'm not doing what I say I'm going to do, then I'm going to be that productive workaholic. Because like, look at me, we've hired several people and now I'm just going to continue to be productive. No, the true definition of being a business owner, where a lot of advisors are not, they're great financial planners. They're great financial advisors, but they're not great business owners if they can't leave a business and constantly be looking at it, right? So I think you get to phase 3, processes, systems. This is the E-Myth, type of thing. Like you need to have those systems in place. So I love what you're doing. I didn't realize that you went this deep. I thought it was more about the annuity side and marketing, but man, you're doing what advisors need. Because I hear this all the time. We hear from advisors every day. I need to hire. I'm too afraid. I can't scale. Like we hear this all the time from advisors who are struggling, even successful, but they're just so out of balance. And they don't realize it when they make this investment, when they jump into phase 2, phase 3, as you described it, they're going to have greater balance. So you answered my last question, Kristin, like how do you help advisors? But if advisors want to reach out to you, they want to go from phase 1 to phase 2 or phase 2 to phase 3 and phase 4 on in the future. how do they get in touch with you? Besides, obviously, you're all over social and LinkedIn and other places. It's hard not to find you, but if they want to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Can I compliment you? Can I just cheers you really quick?
I'm not going to say no, but yeah, of course.
I'll tell you, that's the one thing I missed is, but it's part of those phases. Phase 1 is the advisor in charge model. Phase 2 is the business owner. So you hit the nail on the head. It's making the transition from being the advisor in charge to the business owner. And phase 3 is operating as a CEO. That's exactly what it is. That's 100%. And E-Myth, 10 out of 10, amazing read. Have to read it. It's amazing. It's funny, your definition of balance is similar to what our definition of scale is. We just happen to be an IMO. That just happens to be the revenue model, right? I mean, we're a mastermind group in business development and coaching company. But my partners and I, right, Sean Sparks and Brad Johnson, they, when we were faced day one with the decision of, do we want to charge people, $100,000 or whatever a year to be a part of this exclusive mastermind, or just take advantage of a revenue model that we already understand and business advisors are already doing? That's what makes the most sense. I haven't talked about an annuity or touched an annuity in a minute. I'm still a big advocate, right? That's my first true industry love. But no, we are a coaching company, and I'm actually my title is the Chief Product Officer here. So that's another part of the things that happened when I came home. Right when I came back was I was building coaching materials and off the side of my desk creating content for the company, doing coaching, working with advisors, and we had to practice what we preach, right? So I now have, I think, greater balance because I have one job, and it is to create the product here, which is probably a better term in other industries, which would in tech. The chief product officer would be like the person who manages the iPhone. Our product, and I think the same applies to advisors, is our experience, right? What does it mean to be a client? That's the most important product that there is. And the product and the client experience that we're going all in on is coaching. So my role is to help build it, but it's a form of servant leadership to make sure that the coaches have everything that they need to serve advisors, and to make sure that, and to help the rest of the team make sure all of the different pieces are integrated. So where before, when I was in Kansas, I was doing 6 different things, I'm only doing 1 now, really. And it's a great place to be. So it's nice to practice what you preach. So I guess that would be that's a good foundation to answer your question. Check me out on LinkedIn. I'm giving Instagram a stab and Twitter a stab now that I'm going to have a book, because the whole thing about the internet, right, and digital marketing is meeting people where they are. Yep. And now I have the bandwidth to show up and share whatever silly thoughts I have throughout the day on Twitter in 140 characters. It's a lot easier, you would think, than getting on LinkedIn. That's mostly where you'll find me. Nice. By the time that this podcast airs, I will also be a published author. Drum roll.
Boom.
Yes.
And what is the title of the book?
It is called The Truth About Digital Marketing for Financial Advisors. Fair warning. It is a book full of truth bombs. It is 100% no holds barred truth bombs. But the way I see it, advisors, marketing, as far as I'm concerned, is just a tool. It's a method of communication that helps advisors better connect with their communities. It's not the shiny object. It's not this revenue thing. It's not this. Marketing, when you boil it down for advisors, is a chance to connect with your audience and add value to them and engage with them. And looking around the industry, I saw a lot of opportunities for industry-wide to level up and maybe change the way we think about how we connect with, add value, and engage with our audiences, especially online. And I feel incredibly proud to have, first of all, finished this freaking dang book, but two, to be able to hopefully add some value to some of the most important people in the country, financial advisors.
I love this. And I love that you're going after the book. I know firsthand, and a lot of my clients know, that using a book to help scale and grow the business is a great marketing tool. So you're at a great example of this, of using it, getting out there on social. Definitely check her out. Check LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. Find Kristin there. We're going to put the website in below. You guys can go and check out Triad and learn about if you need this type of help to get from phase 1 to phase 3. I love how you define that so easily, succinctly. It's been a blast to be on this podcast today. I hope everybody else has enjoyed it. Any last thing, something else you want to close or end with before we wrap up today, Kristin?
So I'm in the process right now of getting this book. By the time it'll be out, right? But do you mind if I read you a small excerpt from the conclusion of the book, so that to kind of put a bow on this? Please. Because that's part 1 of the book. Is, first of all, it's business coaching, right? So I think people may be surprised when they read it, find out that it's not off jump. Here's how you create a social media post. It goes back to say, wait, let's think about this as a CEO. Let's not look at this as an advisor. Let's think about this as a CEO. So in the conclusion, and this is the first time I've read any of it out loud in any public forum. I may have done maybe more of that by the time this goes live, but like right now, this is like, I'm a little nervous. This
is a sneak peek of what's going on in the book. First done here on the podcast. I love this. Please go.
So this is the conclusion. And I just think it summarizes this conversation really well. There are a couple next steps you'll want to take, and no, picking up your phone ASAP to call your website company is not one of them. Before we get to those next steps, let's all take a deep breath and start saying no to the fire alarms that go off or you create every time a new opportunity or shiny object comes your way. If your goal is to master digital marketing, this is exactly the type of behavior that will hold you back and burn you out. I know you're busy. I know you're excited to get the ball rolling, but let's take a beat. It does not serve you or anyone else if you're constantly pulling and reacting to fire alarms. The end goal here is getting ahead. But if everything's a fire drill, if it's not sustainable, duplicatable, or easy to pass off, how far ahead can you really get? So,
bam. Love it. I'm excited for your book. I want to read it myself, digest it. I hope you'll have the audio version of that shortly thereafter. I love what you're doing. Thank you for being on the show and for being willing to be vulnerable and tell us what you're struggling with, your definitions of balance, how you help advisors. We are grateful to have you in the industry, and I'm glad to rub shoulders with you. So thanks again for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for basically letting me do the equivalent of showing people pictures of my dog, and hoping that they're as excited about the picture of my dog as I am.
Absolutely. I know how this works. I know how excited it is to, basically unpack your own book and be able to share with the world what you've been working on, because I know it's super important. You guys, you can still grab our book, Achieving Balance, at travisperry.com with an A, and follow Kristin and be ready for when she's able to make that book available for you as she rolls that out in her style. Yeah, go ahead.
No, 2 quick things. Should have said this. If you want to grab the first 2 chapters, you can go to truthaboutdm.com/2 chapters.
Nice.
And Travis, I'm sure we'll have the link.
Yeah,
and then if any of that resonates with you, you're an advisor, at least from the business development side, and you're doing annuity business, right? So this is a complement to Travis's coaching, specifically in the annuity space. We're highly, highly niched. There is an application to apply to join Triad. So Triad partner or truthaboutdm.com/apply.
Awesome. We'll have that link in the show notes. Definitely give it a look. And we're grateful to have you once again. Thanks, Kristin.